He is very creepy.
He had sex with a Chinese spy.
He did. Oh, that's where I know
That's
him
the
from.
guy.
That's right. Yeah.
But now
okay,
he
now I
did
got
something
it.
also stupid and dumb and despicable. He was ripped for a despicable ad showing a woman arrested for abortion.
Oh.
So let's just watch that because it is so cringy.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy, but I know you won't.
Nom, 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 nom.
You're weird.
He is weird, but cute.
Gross.
Mary Anderson,
Yes.
I have a warrant for your arrest.
Arrest for what?
Penal Code 243 violation. Unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
You gotta be kidding me.
That is my personal business.
That's for the courts to decide, ma'am. Your medical records have been subpoenaed, and Dr. Landry's already in custody.
No, my God, you can't just.
You will have to submit to a physical examination.
What? By who?
No, no one's touching
Sir,
me. My wife-
get that! Ma'am, turn around!
my God.
Put your
Oh my
hands
God.
behind your back, now!
Why is this happening? Hey, Bear.
We're just enforcing the law here.
Consequences. Vote Democrat on November 8th. Stop Republicans from criminalizing abortion everywhere. Protect women's rights and freedom.
Wow.
Don't do this.
Yikes.
So, any thoughts on that, Stephen? I'll give you the first chance
The
at
first
the bit.
thought.
I have a lot of things.
Oh, I'm sure you
come
have
on
a
that.
lot of things. Well,
oh
this
my
is
goodness.
like terrible production
Mhm.
value. It feels like it's a bit of a satire. Well, you're watching.
It almost seems like the cops are so
Yeah.
like clownishly evil
Mm-hmm.
that it's almost like okay, that just seems
Yeah, it's
dumb.
like you're not actually saying that, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, yep.
We're just enforcing the law. Of like,
Nope.
Mhm.
Well, and like, okay, there is no law in the books in the United States
Mhm.
that would currently arrest women. Every abortion law that we have, or that has been proposed, is about arresting the doctors.
It criminalizes access. It criminalizes access.
To abortion.
Yeah, not the people receiving that. So okay, like this is a trick that the pro-abortion side does all the time. They try to scare people by telling them the worst case scenario, the worst fear possible is what the other side is doing. It's basically like the ultimate straw manning, where they basically try to say you're going to be like locked up just for having an abortion. It's like this is lying with political.
It's lying because that is not what the Republicans are suggesting. Now,
No.
I will say,
Hmm.
like further down the line, yes, like we definitely should be arresting the doctor, like the people who are perpetrating the doctors.
Mhm.
But yes, there is a point in time where we have to say, all right, it's well known enough what abortion is.
Yeah.
And you procured this, and you are equivalent to someone asking for a hitman.
Well, it's like in after the civil right they outlawed slavery, but then there were people who were still trying to practice slavery, though it was now. Now, the big thing I need to point out here is that they make it sound like this will just come out of nowhere. No one will see this. This family didn't even know. It's like, what? They changed it without their knowledge and told me in secret. I'm like, give me a break.
Nope.
People, when laws change, nobody is surprised.
Yeah.
They know what's happening. Let's take this and put this scenario in the real world.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they didn't go the miscarriage route.
Well, they'd love to do that.
Oh, they would.
But like, no. But this is what they want. They want to make it sound getting an abortion. You'll suddenly have a cop show up, totally out of nowhere. You don't even know it happened. It'll just be like a giant shock or surprise. That's not the real world. The real world, what would happen is this woman would know that getting an abortion is illegal, and thus going to get an abortion, like she knows what she's doing it in full knowledge that she's doing it illegally. And then, like, oh my God, the consequence, where did these come from? It's obviously a lie, because that's not what would happen in the real world. Everyone would know what they're doing. This is what happened. This is what was happening before Roe v. Wade, before like abortion became a thing in the United States. Women were getting abortions, but they knew they were breaking the law. They knew what they were doing. If the cops showed up at their house, they're not shocked.
Yeah.
They're trying to create a completely nonsensical scenario, which doesn't at all align with reality. Secondly, there's no, like you said, there's no law in the United States where they're trying to criminalize the woman. That is a complete lie. And this is what they do. They lie to people, emotional appeals to get them to believe nonsense. If you remember that story, like Michael Knowles interviewed that grandmother who got shot, the left grandmother who got shot by those nut jobs.
Oh, yeah.
They were like nut uses.
They tried to lie and say that it was a warning shot. It's like...
Yeah. But what was the justification? Yeah.
The justification?
Justification that they used was like, I had a ectopic pregnancy and I would have been charged criminally. And I'm like, you've basically bought a lie. Because that is a complete lie that people are being told in order to try to try to basically fool them into believing the worst case scenario is what the other side. This is why it's so dangerous what these people are doing.
Yeah.
Eric Swalwell is not a good person trying to warn people about legitimately real things. He's basically scaring people with nonsensical, unrealistic scenarios that will not happen.
Yeah.
And this is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Steven, go ahead.
Well, and that's part of why this channel exists, is to say this is what they're pushing and this is what reality is.
Yeah. I used to always wonder, I'm like, why are there no conservative sites? And I heard what's his name, Dan Bongino. Mm-hmm. He actually said, actually there are fact check sites, shows like this, and shows like Louder with Crowder, shows like all these other shows. They act like real time fact check, because if you actually want to do a fact check properly, you have to take time.
Yeah,
you can't just get it done in a tiny little article. You have to break it down, go through it. And that's what the one reason why this show exists. It's because we want to fact check these kind of nonsensical things that are being thrown out there.
Like if they're putting out these claims, there are people, like we saw in the comment thread from our video on Thursday, there are people who will believe absolute nonsense and then push it as the gospel truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where and this video is entirely propaganda. It's gaslighting to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. And it's pushing a narrative that, yes, we do want some of this to come to pass, but it's going to be very public. People are going to know about it.
No one's going to be shocked to when they show up at your house. You're like, what?
Yeah. And
I'll go.
If you're arrested for illegally terminating a pregnancy, the reaction will be,
oh, dang.
Oh, you caught me.
Yeah.
It won't be what?
Yeah. What? Where did this come from? What happened?
Her reaction is, it was a personal choice. No, it wasn't. You killed your kid. And then daughter's like, why is this happening? Because mommy killed your brother.
Yeah.
Don't
you love how they also the officer said you'll also have to submit to a physical exam? I'm like, give me a break. They're not going to say something like that in front of in front of your family. I'm like, give me a break. That was totally done for to get the whole the father reacts, and then they pull their guns, and I'm just like, give me a break. I'm like, oh my god, this is so over the top Hollywoodization of a scenario. Also, finally, did you notice how what's it called in even here in Canada or the United States, when we have the lockdowns and you can have people over and all that kind of stuff, there are people who basically have people over at their houses, even though they know. If the cops showed up, I don't think any person would have been like, what? Why are the cops? Why are we being treated like criminals?
No, everybody who had the cops show up and we have rights. And you're taking them away, and you're part of a tyrannical organization. And the cops are like, we're just following the law. It's like, What about the charter? It's like the charter doesn't apply here. How do
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like you
But-
are
but-
not the arbiter of the law.
Yes, but it shows that they even in that case, we're not
We're not ignorant.
we're not ignorant. Be like, what? There's a law. Where did this come from? It's like we all know. So this is this is what people in politics do. Like the very people that yell from the rooftops about misinformation are the very people peddling it.
Peddling
This is like-
all of it.
All of it. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Greatest purveyors.
Oh boy. So tell us about the next story. So this
So this.
so you think
continues
Eric
on
Swalwell
to-
is bad?
Yeah,
but-
if you think, oh boy, this guy is absolutely nuts. Congressional candidate stars in porn video to show that he's sex positive. Thank
Lovely.
goodness there is not a video for this. A
thank
liberal
gosh.
independent
Oh, yeah.
congressional
We're
candidate in New York. What?
Or we would get a strike on YouTube
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
Recently starred in a porn video to demonstrate his commitment to sex positivity. Mike Itkes, who is running against Representative Gerald Nadler, uploaded the 13-minute video Bucket List Bonanza to Pornhub.
Oh,
He told
boy.
City and State he made the sex tape with porn performer Nicole Sage as a conversation piece. Wow. If I would just talk about it, it wouldn't demonstrate my commitment to the issue, he told the outlet. And the fact that I actually did it was a huge learning experience, and it actually influenced items on my platform. Giggity, giggity.
Oh boy.
He said that he had never had sex on camera before making the video and described himself as an introvert. I'm kind of a nerd who doesn't like to be the center of attention if I can avoid it, but I thought the issues that I'm trying to address are so important. I wanted to have my issues talked about in some way, said Itkes, who is currently in New York's newly redrawn 12th congressional district. He's a registered Democrat whose bio describes him as not married, no kids, not celibate, atheist. In a statement that making the sex tape was one of
Explains
the
a
most
lot.
meaningful experiences of my life. Yep. So
See-
one of the three primary goals was to advance sex positivity, to explicitly protect sexual rights by ending government involvement in marriage, the right to not become a parent in case of pregnancy, the right for women to terminate an abortion, the criminalization of sex between consenting adults, a nationwide definition of consent, and legalization of sex work. So,
He basically wants to make a completely and totally.
yeah.
Well, it lives in New York, so I mean, he's already there.
Oh, yeah, he's already there. It's like, dude, there is a solution to all of your craziness. You should have gotten married instead of being a single bachelor who is crazy about sex.
Well, this shows like the problem with left wing kind of like ethics. Left wing ethics when it comes to sex is anything goes.
Anything goes as long as there's consent.
Whatever floats your boat, anything goes, and there are real life consequences to this kind of nonsensical idea that every kind of not every kind of sex act is equally good or is even positive and constructive. Like sex work, like he wants to legalize sex work. You know what that means? He wants to make it okay for people to basically for pimps to sell women on the street in order to make money for themselves. That is an entirely exploitative style of abuse of people. And he wants to make it he wants to paint
He
it
wants to
like the rats in Rio de Janeiro, like they paint them colors. Like, oh, but these are colorful rats. They're fine.
Yeah.
That it's the kind of redefinition of societal norms. In the past, we would have thought you know what? It's a bad thing when a society has so many prostitutes. He wants to paint it as a good thing. Yeah. It's a bad thing that we're like pornography is one of the most abusive and exploitative industries on earth. This is one of the things that fuels sex work and sex slavery and human trafficking. And yet he wants to make it okay. Yeah. These people are incredibly self-centered narcissists who only want what's best for them. They don't care about the human cost. And so the fact that he's actually going on a porno shows how completely morally vapid this man is. Yeah. And the fact that he's in Congress and that he's not facing instant elimination.
Well, he's not in Congress.
No, he's running.
The fact that he's not eliminated from contention for doing this is a joke.
Paul, I mean, what was that guy Remember that we with that video we did of that guy who did like he superimposed like AOC and into like Attack on Titan,
Oh yeah,
which was funny. That was funny. I
funny.
was like, that was pretty funny. Actually, I get what he's saying. They actually got a committee and when
Yeah,
wanted
they
to find somebody to
investigated
kick
him
out.
for like threats, and they wanted to charge him.
Yeah, they wanted to charge him with like legitimate crimes for a joke.
Yep, for a
And
joke.
yet this guy wants to like he doesn't want to. He went on a porno,
Yeah.
and that somehow doesn't disqualify him from running for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
New York, you are an absolute like rat-infested hellhole.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel so bad for them.
Oh yeah.
They legitimately live in hell on earth.
Yep. New York is terrible.
No, it's terrible.
I think I was listening to like Tim Pool today, and it said that there were like 12 people that have been shoved in front of trains in New York already this year.
Oh jeez.
It's like what? 12 people? Like oh yeah, like other forms of murder through the roof, but pushing people in front of trains, new highs. It's like, yikes.
Well, and the thing about New York too is that I remember hearing that New York is what was it? That there are cities in the world that you would think, okay, those cities would be way more dangerous, like cities in Brazil or in like some parts of Eastern Asia that are super dangerous, and you find out actually Chicago, New York, and LA are some of the most dangerous cities
on Earth,
not just in like North America, on Earth. And I was like, wow.
No, like
there
is a merit. There is a merit to the very viral TikTok where the cop pulls over the guy going like 60 over the limit. Have you ever seen that one?
Which one?
So there's a very viral TikTok in which the cop comes up and he pulls this guy over. And he's like, "You were going 90 and a 30, why?" And he's like, "Because I'm driving through the hood." And he's like, "That is a good reason. I'd be speeding too." He's like, "You got a gun in the car?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, you're going to need one driving through the hood. I'm going to get you one. He's like, "That's who you serve and protect." Like, that's so funny. But it's terrible. True.
It is very true. Very true.
Because, dang, those neighborhoods are scary.
It's crazy how bad it. I have family who lives in, and they actually like. I remember hearing. I'm like, it actually is safer to live in Mexico City, right?
Yeah.
Than I think it is to live in New York or Chicago. You can get shot in broad daylight.
Yeah.
In those two cities, in Mexico City, it's possible.
Or you can have a cop run over by a naked woman.
Ugh, terrible. But speaking of one of the filthy people that.
Yep. Speaking of the degradation of society and those that are contributing to it, let's talk about John